Wendy, welcome to the Calm Mom podcast. We just did an interview for your show, and then between recordings, we just have been chatting for like the last 20 minutes. So I feel like I know you so well already. And I'm
Yeah.
so just grateful to introduce you to our audience, full of mamas who are ready and open to receiving all of your wisdom. I don't teach a lot on parenting. So whenever I can get, a real expert in the room, it's such a gift. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here today and to chat. Let's do this. It's going to be so fun.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about compassionate discipline for sure. I want to talk about parenting philosophies. But before we do all of that, just tell the people who you are.
Yes. So, hello, people. I am Wendy Snyder. I am a powerful parenting educator and family life coach, and I help families all over the world expand their parenting toolkit so they can raise their kids with connection, first and foremost, and tools that are based in firmness and kindness, and have been doing this now for, I think it's been 14 years. I found the work of powerful parenting when my little girl was 3. She's now almost 17. She's my strong-willed one. And I was on my knees just begging God to help me not be so stressed out as a mom when I discovered that there was a new way, a different way to parent that didn't involve forcing this little girl to submit. And it's just been the biggest blessing in our lives because she's 17 now and thriving, and she's still as strong-willed as she always was. And I love that about her. So yeah, I love this work, host of the Fresh Start Family Show. And I love what I do. And I love being here for conversations like this.
That's so awesome. And I just love too that, our strong-willed kids, it's like, man, if we can learn, I think first of all, before we even teach them, to channel that gift, right? Because that's ultimately what it is. Like, what a force for good and change that our strong-willed children will be on this planet, if we can help them see that and realize it. So I love that
It's
the way that
true.
you refer to her. Yeah. Beautiful. And most people listening probably have a spicy one, a strong-willed one at
Oh,
home.
good. Love it.
Okay, so let's talk about
They are common. They are common.
yes, they are common, and in a bigger picture for us, my strong-willed one has taught me more about myself and life in 7 years than any other human ever has. So that in and of itself has been a gift.
Me too. Me
Right?
too.
Yeah, and I don't even say that tongue in cheek, like it really has.
Yeah.
Let's start with discipline, I guess, to begin with, because I think that's a
Let's just
place.
dive right in, Michelle.
Let's just go for it because we got people with things to do today. I feel like that trips us up a lot. And I'll put myself in there too, because I think, there's probably a whole spectrum, I would assume, but most of us probably find ourselves on one end or the other, or we're trying to avoid one end or the other, right? And find that medium. And discipline is not fun. And it's something that when we find ourselves in a place where it's time to discipline, we're probably feeling quite triggered and short on time and patience ourselves. So I would love to hear your teaching on, compassionate discipline. What is it? Like, what's the philosophy behind it? And then for people who resonate, what does it actually look and sound like?
Yeah, great question. I love talking about compassionate discipline because I do believe it has the power to change the world. As we just wrapped a conversation around, what it looks like to reach burnout as a parent and things we can avoid to help us thrive in life versus survive. We touched on how mistakes and imperfections were really, honestly, for a lot of us growing up, teed up as dangerous.
Yeah.
And if you made a mistake, if you had a misbehavior, if you didn't get straight A's, there was going to be a price to pay.
Yeah.
And it was probably going to involve some level of emotional or physical pain, shame, disconnection from your parents. And that really left so many of us questioning a lot of things, our safety, our worth, and striving in life with almost like a manic quest to
Yeah.
get it all right all the time.
Yeah.
And really, life is like one big giant journey where there's just so many mistakes that we make as humans. And just like a baby, when you have a baby and they start to walk at like, 10, 11, 12 months old, it's like, the first time they walk, they stumble and they fall. And we don't say to them like, you idiot, get up, baby, come here, I'll give you a spanking, you need to learn better. It's like, no, we're like, get up, you're okay, try again,
So
I'm
true.
going to teach you, steady
Yeah.
your feet, try these little shoes, or don't put on the shoes. You got this.
Yeah.
I believe in you. You're safe. I'll catch you, right? And so, but for some reason, when the kids hit 2, 3 years old, culture tells us that it's time now to, make sure they know who's in charge and they know who's boss. So many of us, if we're being honest, we're raised with that autocratic model, which is kind of the more to the fear and force side, which mistakes were dangerous, and that was seen as smart, wise parenting. So you wanted to train a child to please, and correction was the model. And so now those of us who are leaning into more connection based, relationship based, firm and kind parenting, we teach from a perspective of mistakes are to be normalized. Most mistakes are not 4 alarm fires, and there's always an ability to learn from your mistakes when you tee them up as safe. And yes, yeah, you get triggered quite often when a kid makes a mistake, but that has to do more with the past than the present and the future. And so, in essence, punishment is really just based on the past. It's based on retribution, making a kid pay the price, making sure they feel bad about what they did. And then discipline is based on the future. So you are helping a child train like an Olympic athlete would train for the Olympics, right? Like you're going to fall down a lot and then you get back up. You use data from what worked and didn't work yesterday. So if you smacked your brother yesterday and it turned into be a real not good situation, and then you felt guilty when you went to bed, we're going to learn from that. And I'm going to teach you how to have self-control so you can behave differently tomorrow. And I'm also going to relate to you because I've been so mad before. Like it took me probably 8 years to stop yelling and like 10 years to stop slamming doors. And so, relating to kids, focusing on teaching, we teach here logical consequences and natural consequences, as well as self-calming as the number one priority when it comes to compassionate discipline. The logical consequences mean you are just basically creating a teaching environment where a logical consequence is related, it teaches responsibility, it's reasonable, and it's respectful. And I always say the way you measure respect is, would you do it to your grandma? Would you do it to your pastor? Would you do it to your neighbor? And if the answer is no, then no, it's not respectful. And children deserve the same type of respect, and they're just going to make a million mistakes. And using compassionate discipline instead of punishment changes lives.
Yes, amen. I love this, and I love talking about it and teaching about it, and offering people and parents a new perspective on a lot of things that they may have seen or experienced or just think are normal or how you do things. Something that's kind of counterculture maybe in our home is that there's not really any rules, right? Like there's just not a lot of rules in my house. There are boundaries and there are certainly expectations, but there's just not a lot of rules. And I wonder if what your take might be on that. And maybe it's more nuanced than just like the simple question I'm asking.
Yeah.
But what I hear a lot in your talk about consequences kind of goes to that. I think like I can, set a rule for my kids, like you must be asleep by 8 p.m. without much leeway or flexibility for real life or opportunity for them to learn to self-regulate and experience the logical consequences. So for parents maybe who grew up with a ton of rules in their own homes when they were kids, and now feel this pressure to make all these rules and enforce all these rules in their homes, what might be some like unintended consequences of that?
Yeah, well, I love that what you're talking about of not having these like rigid rules. I bet you in your home, You do have agreements. And that's
Yeah.
really what we lean towards in this work.
Yeah.
Boundaries and limits
Yep.
and agreements. And
Okay.
so one of our kind of most popular or kind of famous little formulas we teach in our Firm and Kind Parenting Blueprint is like a four step process to setting limits and sticking to them with consistency. And that just it basically is like it's kind of like fences, right? For kids,
Yes.
like you have
Yes.
freedom, and then here's the fence.
Yeah.
And and let me teach you why bedtime is at 8, and I'm going to help you understand how the body works, right? Like when you have a full night's rest, then you feel really great the next day, even when it's 5 o'clock at night, right? But when the body is, so it's a lot of teaching, and then the agreement just pulls kids in. And the thing about agreements that is very different than rules and compliance statements is really what happens a lot is they will draw a strong-willed kid in because you are helping. Any child will be drawn into it, but you are helping them to see how they benefit from the boundary or from the agreement. And that is a crucial part to working with children, no matter how old they are, because as soon as, when you go the opposite way of like, because I said so, you can expect the more stronger-willed ones, they're going to push up against that fence, and it's going to be stressful. So just learn to make agreements early on. That's the first step in our 4-step process of the Firm and Kind Parenting Blueprint. And it just makes everything else a lot easier. And then you move to empathy, then you restate the agreement or ask them to engage their critical thinking skills. And then you move to choices, which is all about empowerment. And then the task still gets done. It's just more with a teamwork mentality.
Yeah. Okay. So that just like put all of this structure and language to what I didn't know meant a lot to me, but makes so much sense. This is so good. It's all rooted in connection. And just from what we understand about our children's brains, why is that so important? Why is it so important that we connect with them before we coach or instruct or discipline or teach or, whatever else they require of us in the moment?
Yeah. So in my world of positive parenting, positive psychology, we really look at the needs of human beings. I know I heard you touch on this when we were in your interview for the Fresh Start Family Show, but the need to feel powerful, the need to belong, the need to feel safe, the need to feel valuable. Those are all built up when you do things in relationship with people. And when you strengthen your relationship with your kids by using empathy, by using connection, helping them understand that they're not aliens, they're not crazy for smacking their brother or for rolling their eyes or not wanting to go to church or school. And, here's the agreement, and we still need to get it done. We're together. I get you. The belonging goes up. The power goes up because they feel like they're driving their own ship to some extent, and they just feel inspired by you instead of scared of you. So that's a huge difference in this work is still to this day. I mean, the normal model is the 3, 2, 1 countdown's a great example, right? Like I hear it all the time at the, random places, 3, 2, and it's like the motivator is fear. And so we're moving
playground. I see every time it's like, all right, we're leaving in 5 minutes. We're leaving in 2 minutes. And it's like 3, 2. Invariably like the kids
and listeners, don't feel like we're judging you because Michelle and I probably tried this at one time, right? Like, and the thing is, it works in the moment, but then, and some kids will still push up against it, and especially if you have a strong-willed kid, but it just, when you start to move to like building the muscle of influential skills versus forceful skills, then all of a sudden, like you get true respect from your kids and you get them to get in the car after the park because you have true power. And that's why I call my work powerful parenting. I mean, it's positive parenting, but I like to play around with the term powerful because you really have true power of influence. Whereas fear and force is not real power. Like you won't be able to sustain that once your teenage son is 6'2" and you're 5'4", and they now can make their own money, but they're 17 and they still live in their house. Like I watched it go down with my own brother growing up. You can't sustain that power. So it's not true power. But connection and relationship is true power.
Wow. Yeah. I was, I had someone on her episode hasn't aired yet, but I recorded an interview with her last week. And she is a mediator, and she was talking a lot about
Oh,
resolving conflict. But what was so fascinating was she was talking about the different tactics that she has to do exactly that, to get like to raise an esteem with the person with whom you're negotiating. And a lot of it is like
yeah.
a sharing of power and asking for permission and questions and getting the buy-in. And like I'm hearing a lot of these same techniques ultimately with that we use with our own children, not to manipulate them, but to just get them to
Yeah.
see and understand and then cooperate.
Yeah, it's basic human dignity and
It is.
connection,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so
Yeah.
good.
For I want to talk about the strong-willed kids because I think a lot of times, we can hear from parenting experts, and we hear a lot of these things that you're like, well, that might work with like my third child, or that might work with my oldest. But we're like, that's just not gonna. I can picture it going down right now. Like it's not. I have all the scripts from whatever parenting coaches, but like I've tried them, and my strong-willed kid just slaps in my face, and then it's this whole power struggle. So for the people who are listening and those thoughts may be crossing their mind, speak to them. Where could they start? What do you have to offer them? I would just love to hear from you.
Yeah. Well, I think when people have tried things and they don't work, that's the way it is a lot of times in the beginning when something is so new to you and
Yeah.
you're like, you don't really understand the full picture. So here, I mean, we really love people to get the full picture. We start people in one area, like one particular course that we have that sends them through 4 key areas. And the first one is
Mhm.
like, you got to start with changing your paradigm, right? Like, you got to be able to see these kids as blessings, not as curses, to be able to
Yeah.
understand misbehavior is just communication,
Yep.
to understand your power.
Yep.
Second, we move into like, how are you communicating, and like, real building awareness around your part of the dance. And a lot of
Mhm.
parents are just in a space where they are very unaware, like a racehorse would be with blinders, how
Yeah.
when they communicate, there's a lot of times a way we communicate when people around us do not want to cooperate. And we don't even realize it. It's a lot of times through tones and the messages we give. And then we teach parents how to learn the root causes of misbehavior, because there are different root
Mhm.
causes, right? So a
Wow.
kid that
Okay.
hits you or throws a Lego at you or says, I hate you, this family sucks, is a
Yeah.
much different behavior where hurt is the root cause. That's basically a child who hasn't been taught yet, and also watched somebody model it to them, that when you feel hurt, you must hurt back. And so
Mm.
that's like an opportunity to teach emotional literacy, whereas power is a different type of misbehavior.
Yeah.
And inadequacy is a type of misbehavior, right? The kid
Makes
with the
so much sense.
separation anxiety, and then the attention kid who's the class clown. But those are the 4 main categories. And then
Okay.
lastly, we look at the compassionate discipline piece, which is if you still have punishment present in your home, it doesn't matter how much you try some verbiage tweak that you heard off Instagram, your
Yeah.
kid, if you're still like basically punishment to me is a sense, it's a bit of a revenge behavior that parents do. We
Yeah.
label it as like this, righteous thing.
Yeah.
um but really it's just a revenge behavior. So like,
Yeah.
you hurt me, the family, how dare you, I won't let you embarrass this family, I won't let you grow up to be an entitled brat, like I won't let you
Yeah.
think that you can get away with this. And so boom, you lay the smack down. But a strong-willed kid especially will grow bitter
Yeah.
and resentful, and the disconnection in the relationship gets bigger and bigger. And so no amount of verbiage tweaks is going to help that. So that's kind of the big picture.
Yeah.
And also doing things differently than the way you were raised, and the way most of culture is doing it, is it feels like so uncomfortable in the beginning, right? Like, to let a child have the last word is so uncomfortable. So you can
Yeah.
walk away and self-regulate in the kitchen for
That's
just
right.
5 freaking minutes,
Yeah.
like just 2 minutes in the bathroom while you pee. But it feels very weak, because culture and our history, the first 18 years of our life, and the way many of our nervous systems were conditioned, is
Yeah.
dangerous
Yeah.
to let a
Yeah.
child think that they can talk to you like that.
Right.
And so slowly but surely, you just learn what draws you closer with your
Mhm.
strong-willed kid. And I tell you, a lot of it is the empathy
Yeah.
and letting them know that they're not in trouble.
Mhm.
And you get it. And here's the magic secret. If you really want to know the magic sauce, Michelle, um, it's
Yes,
humility.
it is.
It's humility. These kids, and I'm one of them,
Yeah.
they are allergic to hypocrisy.
Yes.
And if
Most
you
people
are
you love.
doing anything that you are not modeling and you expect them to do it, they are king and queens of hypocrisy call out. And that's why I love these kids, is because
So
their
good.
justice button is so big. And
Yes.
you as a past lawyer, I wouldn't even be surprised if you have a big justice button, but
Yeah.
they will not thrive in an environment where there's hypocrisy. So then enters in this beautiful opportunity to humble yourself and
Yeah.
look at raising a strong-willed kid often is like looking in the mirror. And so
Oh my
whatever
goodness.
is gets presented to you, when you can say, wow, this kid really has an attitude, and to start being like, where do I have an attitude? And then when you take responsibility and you say, hey, I want you to know I'm working on this, and I believe that we can change the way we talk to each other, because you don't deserve to be talked to like that. They are like, you watch their little ears, they're like boom, and their shoulders relax.
Yeah.
And it's just like magic. And for
Yeah.
me, you mentioned, I don't know if it's on your show right now or my show when we recorded, but something about how your daughter has taught you more in 7 years than so much. Like, that's been the
Yeah.
story with Stella.
Yeah.
She like had a little stint where she like was experimenting with alcohol at 15, like many kids do.
Mhm.
And Terry and I like felt so compelled. We took a hard look at ourselves. At first we freaked out because we are like, she's an athlete, what is she doing? No. And then we were like, wait a second, let's look at the mirror here. Are we modeling like how to go to a wedding and just be sober and like have fun? Hell no. So we were like, let's stop drinking. And so that's been a year and a half, and we've never felt healthier. We're sleeping great. Like, we're now modeling to this kid, like, how do you go out to a social function and actually like be able to function without having 3 glasses of wine, you know? And
Yeah.
so then it opens up the opportunity. And
Yes.
then those strong-willed kids, that's what they like to see. They like to see authentic, and that's where they become inspired by you instead of cooperation through fear.
Oh my goodness. You could just like drop your mic now. I feel like that was so powerful and so beautiful and so true. And as you're speaking, I'm like thinking, of course, of my own family and my own kids. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's why my little one will be like, as I teach on the nervous system, and she's just like, Mom, I can tell it's time for you to go take a breath. And I'm like, you are so
Amazing.
right. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
pointing that out. That's exactly what I need.
Yeah.
But there was, right, like a humility that had to be grown, I think, or sown, for me to be able to stomach that and then realize that
It's
she's
true.
absolutely right and I need it. That's so beautiful. And with the power of modeling too, right? And the accountability, right? First of all, to like have the humility to look at myself and hold myself accountable for how am I contributing to this, that we're not only modeling the desired behavior, but we're modeling accountability, and our kids see that. I love
Yeah.
that so much. I want to talk a little bit about responsiveness versus reactivity. When
Yeah.
you teach on it, are you more so like, especially on that, are you more so talking to the parents, or is this about the journey of teaching our kids how to grow in their, that little space between stimulus and response?
That
Or both,
little teeny
probably, right?
space that's like negative for many of us beginning. Yeah, so we always here at Fresh Start Family, we're mostly leading from a parent first perspective,
Mhm.
and the child is right behind that, right? So within our programs, my daughter, my spicy little girl, she's been teaching the kids since she was 8 years old. So 17 years now. She
Wow.
has her little lessons when she was little. Oh my gosh, they were so cute. And I think her self-calming lesson that she taught the kids, I think she was right around 8 or 9. And it's so cute. She was like super into slime at the time. And so she did a lesson on how to create your own self-calming bag where you can make your own slime. And at the time she was selling slime. She had like her her own little business.
Yes.
And she was so animated because at the time she was like really trying to be, I'm sure she would watch me on camera, and I'm quite animated, and she, you could just see how she was like mimicking me. And now she's like, she won't even be on camera when she records the episodes or records the lessons for the kids, which I'm like, that's fine, kid, like turn the camera off, all we need is your voice, no biggie. But yeah, so she's been teaching the kids for a long time, and we do know that it just won't work if the parent's not modeling it. So I always think of a story when, so I was trying to implement positive parenting for probably about like 4 months or so, when my teacher, her name was Susie, was like, hey, you got to get to Freedom to Be. I would come in and be like, this isn't working. Or I remember one day Stella took this calming kit that I had made, or we had made. We'd gone to the dollar store and bought this plastic, junk-filled plastic kit. And we were like, okay, we checked the list. We made the calming kit. Now when we get upset, Stella, you're going to take that and you're going to go do your deep breaths and calm down. And I remember the day she was like 3.5, and she stood at the top of the stairs and held that calming kit over her head and threw it down the stairs, and it shattered. And I came into class the next day and I was like, what the hell? I was like, this does not work.
I think I would have just like started crying. Like, what did you do in the moment? Did you just like,
oh gosh, that was back in my highly reactive phase. I was in class, but I was like, oh my gosh, I don't remember exactly that day, but I'm sure that I probably called my husband and was just fuming. I mean, I have other stories when I called him when she bit Taryn and drew blood, and when he was 11 months old, right on this step. And I called him and was like, what do we do? And that's a very funny story for another day, because what we did was not great, but tons of mistakes. But I did go in the next day and I said, hey, I think you need to come to my house, because I don't think you understand what I'm working with here. She's crazy. And Susie was just like, Wendy, you got to come to Freedom to Be. And so Freedom to Be is a weekend healing program, life coaching program that I now teach within my programs. I have one coming up in just a few weeks. And she said, you got to come. I don't care if it's your kid's birthday, whatever. And so I went to this program and I came out and I was like, whoa, who even am I? And it was probably like 2 days later, and I had just naturally begun to do self-calming. So I was stay-at-home mom at the time. And I just like very naturally was able to, I was no longer white knuckling the patience and the empathy I needed to walk away if she pulled the dog's tail or shook the baby or, wouldn't put her shoes on, whatever it was. And so I was starting to model what it looked like to just naturally slow down, take deep breaths, grab my calming kit. And it was probably like 2 or 3 days later, and I saw her come downstairs, and we at the time had a big black lab, and he had a chair. So she sat down in Tank's black leather chair and taking deep breaths and was like, and I was like, hey, I came around the corner, and I don't know why the baby was upstairs alone, but I don't know. They were fighting about something. And I said, what's going on? And she goes, she was taking these deep breaths in the chair, and she just said, I'm calming down because Taryn did something. And I just never forget, because it was the first time that she followed through. And it wasn't because I lectured harder or told more of like, you got to do this, or, you're not going to get your TV time if you don't walk away when you're mad. It was just like, I had to model it. I had to heal. Like there was a lot of layers that happened in that weekend course that healed. And then I had to show her. And then she gained respect and wanted to do it herself. And that was really like the beginning of her many, many years of learning to self-regulate really, really well. And now she does a darn good job at it 14 years later.
Wow. That's beautiful. And I'm sure so encouraging to so many people listening. So thank you for sharing those stories like that, because for those of us with younger kids, that definitely gives us a lot of hope.
Yeah. And Michelle, before you go on, I will just add too, because you mentioned listeners and viewers, it's like, just remember it was that point forward. Then it took me 7 years to stop yelling. Then it took me 10 years to stop slamming a door. I've written articles called, one was called I Left Bruises, when I grabbed my little boy's arm so tight that the next night I saw a fingerprint bruise on his bicep. I've written articles the night I threw a book at my kid. Like, it was not I went to a weekend course and all of a
Yeah.
sudden it took me a long time to escape the pattern of reactivity. And I'm just
Real.
so thankful that
Yeah.
I was determined, because now I do live my life in a very different way with two
Mhm.
teenagers
Mhm.
that are perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
And it's pretty rare that
Wow.
I raise my voice these days. And so it's just it feels really good. It's worth it. Just stick with
Yeah.
it, and don't think that, one story of success means that there was never hiccups,
Yeah.
because we're just imperfect people, and that's part of being human. And the journey
Yeah.
is the most important thing.
That's right. Thank you for that. And thank you for the permission in that. And thank you for the, I think a lot of us, well, one, I think we love like this microwave society, right? It's like everything's just going to be quick and fast. But then I think the other part of it is like we know how we want to be showing up, and we know how we want to be responding to it. Like we know these things. So we can get really frustrated with ourselves when that's not how we act, right?
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of times understanding that this is a practice, this takes time, this is a journey, and even just understanding in the way in which we rewire our brain that we do so much better at learning new practices when we're compassionate with ourselves rather than being harsh on ourselves in those moments that are less than stellar that we all have, because parenting tiny little human beings is really stinking hard.
Yeah, it is the only way. The self-compassion is the only way. Like, I think probably not going to get there if you don't have the self-compassion piece. And
No.
I think people like Brene Brown have proven that, right?
Yeah.
Like, her
Yeah.
research shows that it just keeps you stuck, and you just keep repeating the behavior. But then as soon as you bring in that self-compassion piece and you get rid of the shame, no, I mean, no, probably not ever going to get rid of it totally, but once it
Expose
starts
it.
to shrink, and
Yeah.
you realize, like, oh, I can say aloud on a podcast that I wrote an article called I Left Bruises, and I'm still lovable and perfectly, like, unconditionally loved and a great mom,
Mhm. Yeah.
like, once the shame starts to melt away, then the behavior changes.
That's right. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, the last thing I kind of want to get your take on is, and this is something that I hear a lot in my coaching spaces, is when parents have different parenting, either philosophies, or they were raised very differently, or they were disciplined very differently, or one was really permissive,
Yeah.
and that can be hard, I think, to come to an agreement, because so much of it is really, like, I love the way that you mentioned it when I was on your podcast, that we inherit a lot of these ways of being. So right, so those patterns go so deep. So when we're trying to be in partnership and raising children with someone else and have very different ideas of how that should look, especially I think when it comes to discipline, how are some ways that are helpful in approaching that, rather than it being like, well, I'm wrong and you're wrong, right? Or my way or the highway, or whatever
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times as women, we are many times like leading the family in ways
Mhm.
of education and emotional and spiritual health and healing. Like, I just
Yeah.
think that's what I see across the board.
Same.
Whereas a lot of times the mom will go first,
Yep.
and then the dad slowly comes on board. And what you
Yeah.
have to remember is that there has to be safety, right? So and it gets tricky with discipline, because especially if there's hurt and harm going on, and mom like learns how, like, she really is not okay with that anymore,
Yeah.
then that can be very, like, tricky to navigate.
Yeah.
And you just want to keep asking for what you want.
Okay.
And a lot of times in our world, that comes down to just getting the education in front of the partner.
Yeah.
So if it's your birthday, if it's Mother's Day, if it's Christmas, if it's Easter, and someone might buy you like chocolate and put it in an Easter basket, just let them know in advance, like, actually save, like, you can save your money. All I want you to do is listen to this podcast episode, or,
Mm.
go through the foundations course modules with me.
Yeah.
That's really what I want. Or what I really want is for us to go to this weekend program of Wendy's Freedom to Be, where we see so many marriages healed.
Yep.
And we also teach in that program, like, how do you hold space for someone and learn to listen
Yeah.
And that whole exercise is like really pivotal to help someone understand, like, because we teach spouses and partners, and you do this with your kid too, but like, how do you hold space for the uncomfortable messiness of not being on the same page, and then also see it from their eyes, like see
Yeah.
the and so using empathy to like really truly connect
Yeah.
before going on to, and then we're really in that exercise, we lead with humility. So you can count on me, right? So it's like
Mhm.
empathy, it's deep connection, seeing things from their eyes, and then here's what you can count on me. And
Mhm.
usually that's in the realm of like a complaint that they have against
Mhm.
us. So like if they're like opposed to positive parenting or compassionate discipline, and you would want to see their complaint as a request. So essentially it's like, so if they're like, oh, that stuff is weak, it's permissive, it teaches kids to be entitled brats, like that's a
Mhm.
complaint. And so you would
Yeah.
want to, so that turns into a request of like, hey, can you help me understand how it actually is teaching kids true strength,
So
self-regulation, self-calming, emotional literacy, peaceful conflict resolution, how, and I always tell parents, tee it up as like, hey, here's what I've learned, and this is like today when you were at work, I tried this and it really helped
I love that.
get our child to take its nap or stay in the room. And you just want to add in as much of like, I can see why this is confusing, or I see why
Yeah.
this feels scary to you. I'm working through the same thing, you know. When you build connection in that way, I think their guards come down a little bit. And then again, you just got to keep asking, because you can try to relay the information as much as possible, but until they actually get into some education work where they have the certified coach teaching them in a program of some sort, it's going to come across more effectively than if you're like, hey, I'm going to watch the lesson and then I'm going to tell you why we should discipline versus punish. Like, you're going to fumble, right?
Yeah.
And then they're going to be like, but what about this? And so just keep having the courage to ask. Instead of a Christmas present this year, would you just push play on these modules for me? That's all I want, is for us to just get the same information, and then we can have a level-headed talk about it.
Mm. That's so helpful. I feel like everyone can start there. It's so good.
Yeah.
I love your teaching. Like, I want to learn more from you. I could listen to
Oh.
you all day long. So I just thank you, one, for being with us, and pouring into to all of us listening. And then second, thank you for the work that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is, you mentioned it earlier, like this is the work that changes the world, right? This is legacy work. So I'm just so grateful that you are filling this space, because there is certainly a need. And so often moms come to me and they're like, but it's like so hard and all these, and I'm like, it's because you care so much, right? Like, it
Yeah.
feels so hard and so big because you care so much. So to guide us in this space, whereas women, we just care so much. I'm so grateful that your voice is part of that space. So thanks for being with us. Let everyone know. I'm sure it's going to be all in the show notes, you guys. But for those of you who have been waiting with pen and paper, where you can find Wendy and continue to learn from her, and all of the courses and content that she puts out there, where's the best place for people to find you?
Yeah. Yes, please come find me. Let's hang out. I'd love to get you in my virtual classroom. Most of my work is online these days. So really, wherever you live in the world, you can come hop into a free class or listen to our podcast. It's called the Fresh Start Family Show. We're on both YouTube and in all the podcast platforms. And Instagram is Fresh Start Wendy. I do a lot of teaching over there. You can drop in the word freedom on any post, and I can help you in the DMs get into our most popular freebie, which is a free learning guide about strong-willed kids, and then also a free workshop that I teach, a 1-hour workshop around how to approach power struggles and dissolve them with dignity and connection versus fear and force. And so you can, head to freshstartfamilyonline.com/power struggles, or just again drop the word freedom, or DM me the word freedom, and that's like an easy way to hang out in the DMs with me and get you into that free little learning asset or resource.
Yeah, amazing. Well, that's so great. You're such a joy. Thank you again, and I'm believing that we'll connect again soon. This is really, really special.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. This has been amazing.